Yeah, there we go. There we go. We're good. We did it. It's streaming. I was worried, but we're good. Okay. So should we just pop up in just a second here? There we are. We made it. We're on the big screen.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. While everybody gets in here, it is good to see you. Back with John. He was recovering, but we're back. The dialogue must continue. The show must go on.
It must.
The show must go on. So, yes, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the dialogue. We got a great discussion for you. We were chatting beforehand, and I think this is going to be very interesting. And we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence today, and kind of a well-rounded discussion. And John has a very interesting approach here in terms of some of the less considered implications of AI when we talk about these things. So, John, it's great to see you. And what do you kind of give us a lead in to what you were going to tell us, kind of start the discussion today about in regards to AI?
Yeah. Well, artificial intelligence is a tool that's being developed to make you less capable. That's a great objective, isn't it? Make humans less capable because somebody else, some other automated process will do it for you. So I'm not buying it. It's a huge topic and a huge technological development, and people would like to say it's as important as the internet itself, or it's as important as the Gutenberg printing press and nonsense like this. But there's a fundamental core problem with the technology when it comes to so-called helping humans do things. And the problem is that it passes brain activity from your brain to an external process and gets you to use your brain less. And I think using your brain less is probably not a way for us to move forward. I don't think that AI, which is a technology that's made by humans, is going to be able to do better than humans when it comes to the things that we like to do and that keep us feeling good about every day we wake up. And those things are creative things, like like waking up in the morning and having a sudden thought about how you're going to do something better for your family, or you got an idea for a novel, or a song came to your mind and you're going to pick up your guitar and play it and write down that thought that came to you in your sleep. These activities are all really nourishing for a human being. Passing any of that off to AI is, in my view, kind of a bit of a crime against humanity, to be kind of dramatic about it.
Sure.
So I'll just uh, I'll just start with the kind of an example of what this actually means on the ground. So I'm going to compare how I started to write music with how somebody might do that today using AI.
Right.
Okay. So I went to the San Francisco Conservatory back in the Stone Age, and I went there as a guitar major. Had studied classical guitar since I was 11 years old. I was really good at it, and I was on a path to become a performer. But I had always been writing music on the side as a kid, just waking up, grabbing music paper, and writing down some ideas that came to my mind, or while I was playing guitar, I would write down music. Didn't really know what I was doing. I was just kind of copying whatever music I was playing, and it inspired me to do something sort of like what I was playing, which is called the mentorship thing, where you imitate the great masters, and that's how education begins. You begin by learning from and imitating the masters, no matter what you're doing, music, art, dance, whatever it is. So I was at the conservatory and I took a composition workshop. So these days, people might think, oh, well, composition workshop, that means you were encouraged to be creative and express yourself. Well, no, composition workshop was writing music in the style of Mozart, and then Haydn, and then Beethoven, and then Mahler, so that my hand and my ear and my experience had to be transferred through a pen or pencil, because I had to do a lot of erasing, onto music paper.
Right.
So I had to channel how Mozart's music is put together, or Haydn, and all these composers whose style I wrote in the style of. I had to channel their creative process by trying to imitate them. Now imagine if all I had to do to create this thing, which at the time was basically a study, right in the style of Mozart. I'm not writing my music, I'm
Mm.
learning how to write. So imagine if instead of doing that, I just simply said, hey, ChatGPT, write me a sonata in the style of Mozart. So am I doing anything?
No.
No, I just said one sentence and then a technology produced that thing for me.
Mhm.
So is that a creative act or is that an act of banal consumerism?
When you frame it that way, it kind of seems alien, right? It kind of seems it is inhuman. Intrinsically, when you frame it that way,
Right,
that's how it appears to me.
right. So first of all, just that mere act, let's take away all of the property rights and discussions about intellectual property and so on and so forth. Just that mere act itself is already ethically completely bankrupt. There's nothing there for you. There's nothing to see here. All you are doing is pressing a button and getting something spat at you that is a product that is regurgitate Mozart.
Yeah.
Okay, so how does that happen? That happens because the AI is trained on all of the existing music of Mozart, and it knows how to put sequences of Mozart like things together to create fake Mozart.
Hmm.
Mozart doesn't care. He's dead. All of his stuff is in the public domain. He's not going to be hurt by anything that's in the style of Mozart. Okay, so a person who does that through AI does not learn anything. They don't learn how to write in the style of Mozart. They don't learn anything about Mozart. In fact, all they learn is that AI puts together bad Mozart.
Yeah.
So just go listen to Mozart. You don't have to get all excited about pressing a button in AI and having fake Mozart spit at you. You can go listen to his juvenile works he wrote when he was 6 if you want to hear bad Mozart.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
So um, that's the fundamental issue. And so let's just move forward. So that's how I started to learn to write music. Now, while I was studying that, I was also still writing my own creative things, usually for a guitar or a few guitars, or and then at the end of that first year, after I'd studied how to write in these various styles, my composition teacher, who happened to be John Adams, the famous American composer, said, "You're good at this. Why don't you go in and now take a seminar where you write your own music
Hmm.
instead of just in the style of?" And of course, as soon as I started doing that, certain things began to emerge immediately about the kinds of things that I, from my experience playing music, listening to music, and trying to write in the style of dead composers,
Hmm.
could now develop my own voice. But it came from a deep experience as a musician, learning to play an instrument, learning to play music with others. Actually, I learned to play a lot of instruments because I didn't just play guitar. I played saxophones and wind instruments in band. I sang in choirs and so on and so forth. A pretty deep experience in music.
Right.
So if people start to be convinced that you don't need any of that training because you can do things through technology. Now, okay, so people say, well, come on, John, I mean, look, a piano is a piece of technology. Yeah, it is. It's a piece of technology and people interact with it and they put their hands on it and they have to, with their hands, they have to make some musical logic. but they have to do it with their hands and their brain. It's
Yeah.
still an instrument, sure. So it's a piece of technology, and when you play the piano, you play piano music, and your fingers do things that are good for piano. And then
Yeah.
just to extend that to any other instrument that you might play. And the same is true. There's always a feedback circuit when you're playing a musical instrument. And people will say, oh, well, come on, John. Now, the synthesizer was invented, and musicians went crazy because they thought, oh, the synthesizers will replace us. Well, they didn't replace. They are another musical instrument that just kind of got into music making, and amplification became a thing, and synthesizers and amplified music then changed how music sounds for certain types of music. And so there's always been a technology that evolves that creates a different feedback circuit with your human imagination.
Yeah, John, there's a great question in the chat, and I would love to hear your thought. And it's, I use AI to teach myself programming language Python. Could you use something like ChatGPT to teach composition?
The answer is no.
No.
No, because the subtlety of teaching composition doesn't come from a textbook. Just imagine this. Imagine that classes in any educational institution didn't have teachers, only had books. Let's forget AI.
Hmm.
Have you ever heard of an educational system where there's no teacher with
Yeah,
advanced knowledge who has read all of the books
right.
and who has a depth of experience developing the stuff in the artistic form? Can you imagine that person not being there and everybody told, just read the books?
Yeah,
Well, it's not true. You can't actually learn without the guidance of a human mind that has digested these things that previous human minds have left as a legacy to us through books.
yes. The collective human consciousness is accessible through books. I think that's one of those things that I think is very true. Is you can gain insight into all of humanity's thought because there is a wealth of knowledge that has
Right.
been left to us if
But that
you know how to get to it.
Right, but what I'm trying to point out, it is the book was written by an author who was a living human being at one
Yes.
point, who had conversations with people, who passed on the knowledge orally through having conversations and
Mhm.
so on. Their books are a record of some of the stories and education that that person would have passed on in person, right? But the book itself is only a representation of part of that intellectual
Right.
representation. Okay, so you can't just rely on the book. You need to rely on people who are also channeling today the same kinds of thought processes
Right.
based on reading and engaging with the minds of the past through, and the only legacy that you have for that sort of thing is books.
Right.
Music, you have now recordings, which are really fantastic because that gives you a a moment in time when that recording was made,
Yeah.
of how that musician played that piece of music. Okay, now that's a whole other story about how the human imagination responds to the recorded medium. That's a whole topic
Yeah.
about mechanical reproduction and how the repetition of a recording imprints it in your memory,
Right.
which is a new experience of music that didn't occur in Beethoven's time, for
Right.
example. Right? So that's a whole other topic. So can AI teach composition? Not really. It could possibly help
Right.
by collating information the way it will do it for other topics and for learning Python, for example. There's no question that a technology that aggregates information and provides it to you, that's not a new technology. We've had encyclopedias and all sorts of aggregating information aggregating technologies in the past. The problem with AI is, what are the sources of that information,
Right.
right? So the sources of the information are not not vetted and not necessarily known. We don't know if AI is spitting 100% verifiable content at us or not. where are the sources? Where are the footnotes? Where is all that hard evidence that goes into real research?
Yes. I
And
think
that's the problem. That's one of the fundamental problems of the ethics of AI is that it's claiming to be able to help us with all of this stuff. But what if it makes a mistake?
yes, I think that's true. And I think in a lot of ways, I probably a year and a half ago when I started to really try and use AI as a tool. I realized that it was exceptionally lacking. To your point, it makes a lot of mistakes when doing research. There's only one function of AI that I use, and it is the deep research tool. And I like it because it provides a cited source list every time, which means I can verify those things myself, which means if it seems wrong or if I'm going through and I see a mistake, I can fix those things myself. But other than that, I genuinely am very critical and skeptical of AI because over the last, 2 or 3 years, in a lot of ways, what's happening is AI has started to train itself on itself. And like we're discussing, humanity brings a unique and real usable experience. But when AI starts to train itself on AI, which is inherently dumber than us, it can't be human. It can't accomplish what we accomplish as human. AI cannot put together the pieces of a puzzle in my research. It can't put together the different pieces when I'm looking at players in, the markets or what Jared Kushner and Donald Trump are doing overseas. It can't aggregate my questions and make the thesis I'm trying to prove. Can't do that. What it can do is get me things. But that's the only use I believe AI currently offers me after trying
Right.
many things. And it's your point is it's good at aggregating. It's an aggregation tool, and for that I think it's valuable, but it can't teach you the core of what, composition is as you describe, which is the heart, which is the human part of making music.
Well,
AI
so
can never be human.
the funny thing is when I hear people talking about AI, people don't actually talk about um, what is it doing, and what what do we consider to be a smart person?
Mm,
Okay, I'm just using the word smart for a very specific reason. Okay, because there are people who are very knowledgeable, who have a lot of information in their heads, but they're not very smart.
yeah.
They have a lot of knowledge and they can cite things and tell you stories ad nauseum. You could sit for hours with a knowledgeable person who will tell you all sorts of knowledge. But then there's something called intelligence. And sometimes people think that knowledge and intelligence are the same thing,
Mm,
but they're not the same thing.
mhm,
Okay? You can have a person who has advanced intelligence, but not a huge basis of knowledge, and they can reveal things about ideas that the knowledgeable person would never occur to them
right,
because their pride comes in having uh, uh, accumulated, uh, like a hoarder, a lot of knowledge.
right.
So, what is AI doing? You've just said it. AI is aggregating information. But is it, and it's called artificial intelligence.
Exactly.
Why isn't it called artificial knowledge aggregation?
Right.
Because
Right.
it's actually doing.
Right.
Now, the people who are promoting it want to pretend that the computer and the programming of AI is somehow intelligent because it's able to aggregate all of this information. But that's not necessarily intelligence. Intelligence is something else that's not so easily quantified. And that's what makes us human.
Yeah. It's that intrinsic humanity that allows for intelligence. It's the ability to pull different things and create something new. And as you're describing, listening to those different composers to create music, it can pull all of, like you said, Beethoven, and put together, a crappy Beethoven, right?
Right.
But it cannot create using the fundamental concepts from all of those things. That requires the special intelligence that comes from being human.
Right.
And I think that in particular is also, where they are misleading, is you're saying, I love that what you just said, it should be artificial knowledge aggregation.
Right.
Like that's what it is. It's that's what I use it for. That's it as a tool. It's the same as saying, like, say somehow, some miracle, they find a way to well, they have kind of done this. They can 3D print a house for millions and millions of dollars. They will 3D print your house with cement or whatever. It's this huge machine. It's actually kind of cool. But say they start 3D printing every single house, and suddenly the carpenter becomes irrelevant, the framer, the architect. And I love, my favorite example of this actually is if you go to Europe during the Dark Ages, where they began to build these cathedrals, and the knowledge of building the vaulted ceiling was closely guarded by the architects themselves. They would pass it from father to son. And then you had the famine that came when you had some weather event and there was basically not enough food, and they stopped building these cathedrals, and the vast majority of them, the sons died or they weren't building, and the knowledge was lost. And they came back to these cathedrals and no one could do it. AI poses that threat. It poses that threat to everything. If they're saying that you don't need intelligence anymore, we've made it artificially, but it's not. We will end up having unfinished cathedrals in all of our, lines of human development in whatever category that may be.
Right. So, that's a really good example of how knowledge is lost through this process, because the the way that new things emerge in society is through nonlinear processes of creative thought. Um, People may believe that inventions occur through a linear sequence of thoughts. I have learned this about the topic and I have added this to my knowledge. And as I add things to my knowledge, there's some kind of progression that leads to the next step. But that's actually not how, uh, you know, invention works. Invention works through leaps of the imagination. And those leaps of the imagination occur because the person who's the inventor has explored a whole bunch of topics related to the thing that they end up inventing. And they don't necessarily make a linear connection between this, that, and the next. That linear type of thinking, that kind of code thinking, where you've got lines of code and they all have to be troubleshooted and make sure that they reinforce each other and that it ends up doing the thing that the code needs to do. That kind of thinking, whereas there's creativity in code, I'm not saying there isn't, but that notion in the popular imagination that things are somehow a linear progression is actually not true. And I don't think that that new creative ideas that really are revolutionary will come from AI. They might, but that's not. All I can say is, who cares?
Right.
Because what matters is what we do. We are humans, and we have feelings and thoughts, and we have a whole texture of our lives that needs to be nourished and developed, not the opposite, where that is taken away from us by some process that is done through computer programming. And
Yeah.
that's my fundamental ethical question about it, is that I don't mind if AI or any computer technology is used to do menial tasks. Okay, have robots do things. That's fine. But if you're going to do that, you're going to have to restructure your society so that humans can still thrive.
Right.
And that comes down to a whole issue of, uh, how will the society be organized if you take away a bunch of menial labor? Like any let me scare some Americans here and say any socialist would say that you want humanity to be healthy and for everyone in the society to be happy, so that you don't have fear, fear of ill health, fear of your neighbor. You don't want to live in a society where you wake up every morning and you fear somebody who is your neighbor. You want to live in a society where everybody feels good together,
Right.
right? And the objective of socialism has always been to make sure that there is no abuse of oligarchs and people who have control over the society to make the working class fear every day of their life for their food on the table and so on and so forth, right? So
Absolutely.
if you take away the working class job that is menial and that they probably wouldn't want to do anyway, then what kind of society are you going to have? What are all those people who've been put out of work by robots? What are they going to do? Well, in a healthy society, the society would reorganize itself so that people could do another activity that is nourishing to themselves as human beings instead of menial. And so that's a big question that I don't see the oligarchs wanting for any of us to have access to in the near future. What they want is they want a consumer model where you get your answers from AI and it's immediate, like going to the store and buying something, but that otherwise you don't do anything that nourishes your soul. Well, talk to people who maybe play music every day, and they're going to tell you that's nuts.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's very true. I mean, like the things that often nourish the soul, if as you say, are things that are very creative. It's one of the things about music that is it's nourishing because it's an act of human creation. When I paint, it's very nourishing because I am creating something. And it's the act of creation in and of itself that is very unique to people. And that creation itself can be the creation of a new means to learn something. It doesn't necessarily have to be art. It's creating a new process. When I am doing research and I build a thesis, I am creating something unique to me. It is my thoughts and my questions that I put together to answer a fundamental thing that I don't understand.
right.
And that is where I think that's perfect. And maybe that's a good kind of segue to say, well, people, they do argue, well, AI can create. It can create these images. It can create these things, but it's not. It's aggregating. It's stealing the art and the work
And
of
and my
people.
point my point is, who cares? I don't care about machines.
Yeah.
Machines have no feeling. I'm not going to have any interaction with a machine. We're
Yeah.
using a machine to have a conversation, and you and I barely know each other, and it's very cool that we can do this.
Yes,
But I
absolutely.
don't give a shit about the machine in front of me. I care about you,
Absolutely.
right?
Right.
So when
It's,
you here's the thing that people, because people have kind of bought this idea that that life is only professionals doing things and workers just putting shit together for pay. And
mhm.
people have this idea that, they always say to me, "Oh, I'll never be a professional musician." I say, "Who cares? Doesn't matter."
Right.
The act, like you said just a moment ago, the act of painting does something for your dopamine and for your feeling about yourself and about the world you live in. You're channeling something through your being, and that channeling that comes out in a painting or comes out in a song that you wrote this morning, that activity is what it's all about. It
Mhm.
almost doesn't matter what the result is, right? So a person says, "Oh yeah, I paint on Sundays and I paint flowers." I say, "Great, great." I mean, painting flowers isn't going to make you Rothko anytime soon, but painting flowers does something for you as a human being. And that's what the arts are all about. And amateurism in the arts, just playing music, no matter how you're doing it or when you do it or how often you do it, is a nourishing thing for the human soul. And that's what matters. And I don't care if a computer can ever do that very well. I just don't care.
Yeah.
And here's the fundamental thing is that it's doing that based on having, let's say, aggregated, I'll use the word aggregated for all of the art that it can find on the internet and elsewhere, that is by dead people.
Hmm.
Okay, I'll call it aggregation of information that's already in the public domain. That is to say, there's no
Right.
license on it. Nobody needs to make a living from it because their estate is dead and the copyright has expired. Okay.
Right.
Now, if it's doing the same thing with the work of living people, then it's theft. There's no difference between a
Mhm.
person going into a bookstore and taking a book, paying $20 to $40 for the book, and then taking the book and copying it and selling it to somebody else.
Right.
That's called copyright infringement, and it's
Yeah.
against the law. So
Yeah.
when AI trains itself on existing artists' work, it's theft.
Yeah. And to
And
give
call it
an
anything else is to accept that theft is okay.
yeah, to give an example is I recently was going back through my Substack settings, and I was like, okay, I just want to check because I the other day I went through and I said, well, I want to make sure that I checked the box that says they can't use my writing to train AI. Because,
Right.
of course, that's something you need to opt out of. That's not normal. Now, I went and reread it, and of course, I had checked it. But then I reread it again. And so the actual check, if you uncheck it, it means the way it's worded that you're allowing it to train on AI.
Right.
So I rechecked it, but it's very deceiving. Like they are doing very things like that where, you know, it's counterintuitive. They expect you to say, "Oh well, do I want to be used for AI training?" Well, no, click, and then you give your. Then I give my intelligence away. I give my work. I give the things that I have created away. So I went and rechecked that, and I'm glad I did. But
Are you
in
saying opposite of what it's implied or
Correct. So basically, they write it, and it's like, I do not want a, I do not want to Substack to allow my work to be trained by AI. But you read it, it's like if you're going through and clicking, you're like, well, they're saying one thing. If you click it, they're saying, oh, well, it's not. You don't want that. But generally, you would think that you would uncheck the box when you see that thing. So it's like when I was going through quickly, I'm like, well, oh, AI, absolutely not. Click. But then I realized later when I checked again that, and there's lots of little things like that because it's
yeah.
entirely dependent on stealing the work of the living because it's the public domain is like you said, you know, if they're dead and they've left their contribution to the public domain, it's there to be used for further humanity and whatnot. That's great. But you're very right in the sense that it just is legalized theft. But you know, that's America. Unfortunately, this entire country is a everywhere you look, you know, it's a criminal enterprise. The executive branch has become a criminal syndicate, and it's just but the corporate entities, you know, it's the whole opt out option where somehow the courts have ruled that's legal, that you are as a consumer are responsible to go and opt out of them stealing all of your data. It's
Right.
on you. Their default is allowed to be I'm stealing everything that you're providing, and
Right.
you have to opt out of that. It's that same contradiction where they're selling um, to you in the subtext that you have to give up all of the things that you create, um, and it's on you to stop them from stealing it,
Right.
and that's part of how they enable this behavior.
Yeah. Well, they can't do that with uh, how do I put this? Um, the existing laws against copyright infringement are actually laws on the books.
Yes.
So the argument that people make, which I think is false, is they say the following: anything that's available on the internet is free.
Mm,
Well, that's just simply not true. Um, sure, the internet is a new publishing platform. We're on Substack, which is a publishing platform.
right.
People write on Substack, they own the copyright to the words that they write. And people do not have a right simply because it's on the internet to steal the words of anybody and use them. That's still called plagiarism. It's still copyright infringement. And anybody who tries to tell you that because something's on the internet, it's free and you have given up your copyright is lying. It's just simply not true.
Right. What are your thoughts in regards to the privatization specifically of all of um, this technology, where you have it very much firmly seated under these very few private interests, and what threats and beyond just the fact that it's in the core interest of the few, what threats does that pose beyond what we're talking about now, with the potential loss of knowledge and the training people to not use intelligence, to kind of dumb that away with this big privatization. You have really only open AI, and then Anthropic, which is another company that is really from the same people. They're the same group of people. Where do you see that going, and what are some of your concerns?
Well, the main concern is that public, uh, how can I put it? Like anything that influences public engagement and public use of a resource to an extent where it influences like the majority of the population should be owned in public hands, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I simply don't believe that a private business should own exclusively a technology that everybody uses. It would be like there being one food store, right?
Yeah.
Or anything that it becomes a tool that everybody uses has to be in the public. It has to be owned by the public
Right.
in some way, right? Um, so that's my take on that, and that's very simple.
Yeah.
Um, and the other reason is that then it's subject to public scrutiny
Mhm.
without the notion of the profit motive, and then it's open to the public criticizing it and criticizing how it's being used. So, for example, right now the mythology around AI is creating people who um, uh, have they're excited about the technology, but they are people who haven't really. Um, uh, I'm thinking now here in the creative domain. They're not really creative people. They're just people
Mm.
who like to be creative. And I'm going to give you an example that's rather shocking. Um, so I recently ran across a very disturbing copyright situation
Hmm.
where I woke up one morning and a short poem came to my mind. And I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. I'm going to publish that on Substack. So I published it on Substack. This was several months ago. I can't even remember the exact wording of it, so I won't bore you with that. But what's interesting is that the next day I got an email through Substack from probably a young person who had taken my words, gone to Suno, entered the work, well, pasted my poem into Suno and said, create me a song in the style of whatever with my words. And he was so excited. He sent his Suno creation, which isn't a creation. It's just entering text saying create a song in the style of with these words. stole the words, entered a text descriptor into Suno, which is a music creation platform. It's an AI platform,
Hmm.
and so he said, create this song. So the guy sent me this song with my words, and it was a country song, and it had absolutely nothing to do with the feeling of the text. Zero relation to the feeling that I had been trying to evoke by writing this poem.
Right.
And then half an hour later, I got another one from the same very excited guy saying, "Oh, that version was okay, but here's one with an angry voice." So he had typed into his descriptor the same descriptor, but then said, the singer will be angry. And so the whole poem was sung with an angry voice. Every single word was angry in the same way, as though a robot was instructed to be angry.
Yeah.
Well, robots don't know how to be angry. Uh,
Right.
Robots don't know how to be George Carlin. Um, you know, George Carlin, prime example of a comedian who's angry but hilarious at the
Yes.
same, right?
Yeah. He was
So
also so on the money.
yeah,
So on the money.
oh yeah,
He was like the first person to really call it out, and he could
yeah,
only call it out through comedy. And that's why I think you see, just to go off on a very brief tangent, why you see these comedians being targeted, the late night comedians,
oh yeah,
because it's really always been the only socially acceptable means to criticize politics in the United States. Um, it's and that is very, and I think that is very, you can trace that to Carlin in a lot of ways.
oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, he was ruthless in his capacity to make people laugh at the idiocy of how the U.S. is run, right?
Hmm.
And make people feel comfortable in their uh, their feeling that they could fight this,
Yes.
right? He was really great. Not to mention, of course, my namesake, who's also really great at that.
Yes, he is so very good at that as well.
Spot on. To use his language, spot on. English.
Yes.
Um, anyway, so that's kind of where we're at with AI. It's a very stupid technology that is only good at gathering information, but it can't do the really serious work that humanity wants. And if it's going to play a role in our society, then that whatever the result of that activity is on people has to be viewed as in the public interest and controlled by the public. The public has to have a say in this, and not even just through voting for people. The whole process has to be transferred into the into the public interest. The public has to basically own AI,
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned. And what's going on right now in the United States is the exact opposite, where the oligarchs are building themselves a fortress so that
Yes.
they will control AI and therefore be able to control its entire implementation, and to hell with the result on society,
Yeah.
the implications for our society. That's where
Yeah.
it's got to change.
I agree. And I think in that sense, one of the things I talk to speak to a lot, and my belief in the sense of AI is a tool. I like an AI to a hammer. It could be a forklift. It can do a lot of heavy lifting,
Mm.
right? It can take I used the example the other day. This notebook is, I don't take notes in the normal sense. What I do is I write questions. It's all questions as
Mm.
I'm reading something or whatnot, because the most valuable thing that I contribute is not necessarily the direct information, but the questions that I'm able to ask. Um, it's my AI, that particular function that I've found to be the only useful really thing in all of these chats, whatever, is the very focused aggregation means to get a lot of information very quickly. It's a forklift. It can
Right.
move all of the palette of research. And instead of me having to individually find those sites, they can put in front of me. I can go from link to link, validate, find what I think is what is credible, what's not credible.
Okay, so tell me this, on based on that, what is the fundamental difference between searching using AI and just using the Google search engine?
So the difference is only time. It's strictly time. It's the amount I am able to get in terms of speed and the level of intricacy in which I can take three different questions, combine them into a thesis, and have it get things at the same time. That's the way I use it is because if I had all the time in the world to do these things and to call out this corruption, I would not use it. But the reality is that I am racing against the clock to catch all of these people and to try and bring light to these things because
Right.
they're moving so fast.
Right.
And I have to use every advantage that I have to bring the transparency that I can. But if it were up to me, I would feel more validated doing it myself. But I also have to be realistic in terms of what I can do as a person. And once I have hopefully built up my base enough and have some finance I want to hire researchers. I want people. I want to bring on a team of researchers and I want to change the model. I want to shift away from that and I want to build a human system because a human system is better.
Right.
But I'm not, I'm doing it by myself at the moment and I'm leveraging what I have available to me because I can, unfortunately use this evil corporation's tool for $25 a month to do all of the work that I would rather pay a person who
Mm,
has all the skills
mm.
that we have talked about, but also can do that research. So my
Right.
goal is to get to a place where I don't have to do that. But at the moment, that's the reasoning I do it. And I don't love it. I don't. It doesn't fill me with happiness that I use the tool. But it also um, I'm being pragmatic in what I can accomplish in the same amount of time with my two fingers on a keyboard and a mouse and what
Right.
I can use the tool for. I kind of view it the same way as using a hammer and a nail and then a nail gun. If I'm trying to put a roof on,
Right.
it's probably more validating for me to have wipe the sweat from my brow, nail after nail, but a roof is big. And
Yeah.
that's kind of the answer to your question.
Well, and that all makes sense. And when you think about it, uh, the great advance that the internet has brought to us is the capacity to collaborate with all sorts of people we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And verification is probably the most important activity right now in the information ecosystem. People verifying information as being false or true, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have Snopes, which I have to keep going to because I trip over a post in my feed that I think is correct, and sometimes I hit the button and repost, and then I regret it because somebody says, "Hey, that's actually fake. Go check it out." And I say, "Oh, I was moving too fast. I
Mm-hmm.
have to slow down. I can't expect to do everything at hyperspeed
Right.
because I have to verify that I'm not uh, adding to the algorithm information that's actually fake, right?" And we live in a world where there's so many people wanting to make a quick buck by just aggregating information through the use of AI.
Mm-hmm.
YouTube is full, way too many people who are getting AI to generate text, which is then spoken using a robot, and they put public domain Getty images up while they have this AI thing, and that's on their YouTube site, and they want to gain clicks so that they can make some money. But it's all fake all the way through from beginning to end. They stole the images, they had AI create the text, and it's about a contemporary topic that if you burped the question into AI, it would give you the same results. But these people want to go on YouTube, making these YouTube videos that are supposedly, informational for you. But what they are is they're a video that's over 20 minutes long that takes you nowhere and is only that long so that they can get it up in the algorithm.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
I
called
see so many of those every day.
the name I've seen thrown around is AI slop.
Yep.
And I think that's very on point. Slop.
Flop is
It's perfect. It's just slop. But one of my favorite YouTube channels I've been watching since I was in high school, I'm a freshman. It's called Kurzgesagt, which is in a nutshell in German. But they do fantastic animated, but very factual, animated information YouTube videos. But
hmm,
they put out a video maybe once a week because it takes time to do
hmm,
something right and very verified. And obviously, as technology has advanced, they've also been able to do it a little bit more, probably for the same reasons that I'm able to, do things a little bit faster than I would have been. But they made a video the other day, and they were saying that they're actually struggling on YouTube because of the amount of AI slop that is populating the internet. And I don't know if you've seen any of these, but I've noticed this. I've started to notice advertisements when I go on YouTube to, there's probably 5 or 6 YouTube channels I trust.
hmm.
And it's because they are just they're researchers, they're people. Like I can tell that they're human beings. For Ukraine, there's a guy who was a former pilot, former Ukrainian. He does phenomenal reporting on the Ukraine war. His name is Denis Davidov. And if you actually want information, for all you guys here, if you want real accurate information, um, that's where you want to go, because he's a person. He always shows his sources. He has relationships with the officers and the people on the ground. I trust him. There's channels called war fronts, political fronts.
Hmm.
And it's basically just a guy. His name is Simon Whistler, and he has an army of researchers, and he just gives them, he's like, this is my team. This is what they found. It's very human. It's very real. And ultimately, that's where I want to take the Firebrand project, is somewhere similar where I can platform research, because that's the goal. But what I've noticed is now you're starting to see these advertisements, these YouTubers. And if you scrutinize, AI has a certain cadence when it talks, okay? If it's talking,
Oh
and
yeah.
I'm starting to see these ads where they've created people and they're advertising things, as if people want these things, as if people are doing these things.
Right.
And it's all AI. And it's crazy because they're literally, I can't think of a more misleading or kind of sinister means of advertisement than to emulate actual people wanting something.
Well, and I've also noticed an increase, a dramatic increase in advertisements saying basically, "Oh, this you can do this with AI, our AI product. You can do something that would normally take hours and hours. You can do it in 2 minutes." Great. So for me, this is the same as the "you can learn piano in 5 minutes" ad.
Oh yeah,
Oh, you know that most pop songs are made of 3 chords. I can teach you
yeah,
those 3 chords in 3 minutes. And
yeah.
you know, it's absolutely true that you can learn those 3 chords in 3 minutes, but you haven't learned piano in 3 minutes, buddy. You're never going to learn piano
Mhm.
in 3 minutes, right? So here's my point about speed. What does speed do to nourish you or anybody?
Yeah.
A lot of people who are um, wanting to continue to nourish their souls, let's say, are rejecting the consumer culture.
Hmm.
They're just rejecting the top 40 hits and the fast everything because they realize that fast is not better.
Yes.
The mythology that fast is better is simply a mythology, and it's not proven that human beings necessarily like everything faster. Okay, so faster, live faster, die young. Sure, why not? Is that what you want to do? Or do you want to enjoy a life and enjoy every
Exactly.
moment of the life, right?
Yes.
Rather than have it speedily go by and you hardly take anything away from it, right? So one of the jokes that I've made lately, I posted this a few days ago. I was just, in preparation for our discussion, actually, I put out a note on Substack. It was very simple. It just simply said, um, "Okay, AI, try training on this." And I put a link to one of my extremely slow textual pieces that has no really notes that you could grab from it, or there's nothing much you could grab from it except that it's a very strange atmosphere for whatever it was,
Mhm.
a 7-minute piece or something like that. And my point being that AI is only good at learning stuff that you can stick into a computer, into a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
It can only learn things that can be quantified and put into slots that can then be reorganized. But
Right.
you can't do that with ambient music. All you can do is steal the whole ambient music track,
Hmm.
and if somebody says, "Do me, create a piece in the style of Moby," well, they have to steal the Moby track and spit it at you. So what is that? That's just theft.
It's theft. Yeah,
That's
I think you're right. I mean, I think that I think it is. I think it's just theft. I mean, you have to train on something. These models have to train on something. And you mentioned earlier that these things are technically enshrined in law. Of course, the problem with the United States is law only works if it's enforced.
right.
And that's what we don't have. We don't have any accountability in America. It's why the president's a pedophile. It's why these tech companies can do whatever they want. I was horrified to see yesterday that Meta won their antitrust lawsuit against
Right.
the FTC. And this is coming out after Reuters gets access to a bunch of files, internal files, that expose that Meta makes 10% of its annual revenue off of paid scam advertisements.
Right.
10%. That's $16 billion in 2024.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And
And
it's like, but it's clearly a crime. It's clearly a crime. I mean, that's non-negotiable, but who will prosecute them? Who will do it? And with AI, they've absolutely just done that. It's okay, well, somebody stop us. And I don't credit Biden with much because he could have done so much more for the world, and he chose really to roll with the status quo. Things got marginally better. He did invest in clean energy. He didn't prosecute all the people in the Epstein files, and he should have,
right.
because here we are.
Right.
But he did more on AI regulation. He did that. Of course, all of those things were dropped once we transitioned into the regime. But it's one of those things where I think just the entirety of the AI industry it's illegal. All of it. It's just very
Right.
illegal. It's criminal.
Right.
And of course, they live in America. We live on loopholes. We live on the holes in the wall that you can, stick cash through to get to the other side. So you don't have to worry about going through the door where everybody can see you. But
But
that's the world where, and you're right. I think AI, if it is to be useful and is public domain, and if in our last minutes here, I think if there's something I would like all of us to consider as we leave the dialogue today, and John, I'll ask you also to leave a thought for everyone to ponder on as we end today. But my question to you is, if there is something that AI can be used for good, my belief is oversight, because we have established that it's great at aggregation. It would be phenomenal for monitoring something like the stock market to look for very specific illicit trades. It would be great at looking at legislature to find conflicting elements, or those sneaky things those Republicans like to sneak into the bills, like, I don't know, $500,000 payouts for senators. It would be really good at things like that. So what would AI be good at? Because we've talked a lot about what it's not good at. But if it were public domain, what would AI be good at? And I would ask you to ponder that as we leave the dialogue today. And John, I would love for you to offer them something to think on as well.
well, just to the point you just made, um, uh, people could do that job too,
I think it
right?
has to be both. Just to be
Well,
clear, I think it would be, again, like putting a hammer in someone's hand. You could not just have AI do it.
right.
I should clarify. But I do think if it were to be used in that capacity, Could be
That's
used.
good, and I agree. I've heard this sentiment before, and I agree that if if AI can aggregate more information than our collectivity can do, by the way, um, in an individualistic society, you have the idea of the hero who is going to save, the
Mhm.
single genius who is going to solve the problem. But the fact is that as we have this discussion, we're already engaged in a kind of groupthink. And as and I use groupthink meaning that many minds come to the same topic and come up with multiple solutions. And that's the beauty of collaboration and the beauty of a society that functions where people have conversations instead of ad hominem arguments, which is
Mhm.
what most people do these days. They just insult each other and think that's having a discussion, which it is not, right? So
Exactly.
if everybody agrees that I have a right to my opinion and you can't say anything against my opinion, and that's supposed to be accepted, then we're hooped. Because the truth is that anybody can object to anybody's opinion with factual information. If somebody says something that's it's their opinion based on false knowledge or made up things that are provably false, then you say I don't care about your opinion because it's not based on facts. You can think whatever you want, but it doesn't mean anything. The objective of our society should be to gather the best intelligence that whatever minds have the discussion and contribute to that collective intelligence. We should be using that. And what AI proposes is that AI can do all of that groupthink because it can aggregate all of that information that somehow we have all provided. But our information that we have in this discussion today and that people should be having every day of the week in their families and community centers and churches, wherever, are where you get together and you think together and come up with the best ideas that everybody comes up with.
Mhm.
And everybody acknowledges, hey, it might not be my idea that goes to the fore, but I contributed a little something to the idea that comes out, or the group of ideas that comes out that makes our society better. And so I agree with you, AI might have a role to play, but I think the danger is that people think that AI is going to do that work that our communities should be doing.
This is very true.
And so if it does that, then it's disabling us as human beings. We
Yeah.
need to be enabled by having ethical foundations for the use of this technology, and that can't come if it's in private hands.
Yes. I think that to end with a metaphor, we must ensure that we do not lose our knowledge to build arched roofs within our cathedrals because we don't want to give that up. And knowledge can be lost.
Yeah.
Don't think for a second that we can't lose everything we've gained.
Yep.
Um, John, thank you so much for coming through today and for this discussion. I think it's been very enlightening. I think that everyone here with us as well is leaving with a lot to think about. Very interesting framing from the perspective of learning and through composition. I definitely opened my mind to an entire different avenue there. So I'm grateful for that. But if you guys enjoyed the dialogue today, the good news is it happens every Wednesday, same time, because the conversation must go on. Dialogue must continue if the world is to be a better place. So thank you all very much for being with us. Make sure if you're in the live stream, in the top left-hand corner, there's a little banner that has me and John's name there. If you're not subscribed to either of us, either or, make sure you subscribe to the other. Being a free subscriber gets you access to more of our material, as well as if you can become a paid subscriber to support both of us. It's a great way to also allow us to put more time into creating content and whatnot. But the most important thing is I like to end all my live streams with this and is make sure, like John said earlier, you take it to your church or your community center or everywhere you go because change starts with a dialogue.
It
And
does.
thank you guys all very much. John, any closing words?
No, you have said it beautifully. Thanks.
Fantastic.
Take
All
care.
right. I will see you next week, my friend. I will see all of you next week and have a great day.